how are carbs affecting aging? Now, I'm not here to just demonize carbs, but we do have to look at this big picture. And if you watch my videos, you know that I take a pretty neutral stance in terms of like cycling on and off of keto and having carbs here and there. But when it comes down to what is happening at a mitochondrial level, what is happening at a sirtuin level, and what is called FOXO, all these like pro-longevity genes, carbohydrates are just, unfortunately, they're kind of at the center of that. So we're going to break down how carbs are affecting our longevity genes. After this video, I want you to check out 4 Sigmatic. They've been a sponsor of this channel for a long time, but 4 Sigmatic is how I typically start my day, okay? They have a lion's mane mushroom coffee, so using adaptogenic mushrooms, which help me just think clear. They light my brain up. A lot of times I'll even double the dose for myself because I really like how it feels. It really kickstarts my productivity. But now, because they've been a sponsor on this channel for so long, I'm able to get everyone up to 40% off if you use that link down below, plus free shipping. So you're gonna wanna go to 4sigmatic.com/DeLauer or use that link down below. There's over 20,000 5-star reviews on Amazon. These guys know what they are doing. They are the OGs when it comes down to mushroom coffee. And no, it doesn't taste like mushrooms, it tastes like coffee. So use that link down below in the description after this video. So when you look at how longevity works as far as different genetic processes, there's 2 things we pay attention to. One thing is called FOXO, which is like the pro-longevity gene, which we've seen in studies that in mice, if they get rid of FOXO, it's called FOXO knockout, then the positive effects of caloric restriction are null and void. So it's fairly common knowledge that caloric restriction, like heavy caloric restriction, is good for longevity, okay? Basically, it's less wear and tear on your body. But a lot of it is measured by this FOXO. So in this particular study, you saw, okay, when mice are just void of FOXO, no matter how much you calorically restrict, they were not getting the longevity benefits. So that demonstrates that FOXO is very, very important. Well, what happens when we consume carbohydrates? Well, of course, yes, some of it we use, but excess carbohydrates, they also trigger what is called a phosphorylation of FOXO. So if FOXO is a gene that is related with autophagy, anti-inflammatory systems within the body, other recovery and longevity attributes within the body, then we don't really want to just stop that from getting what's called expressed, right? Well, when we consume glucose, it triggers, of course, a spike in insulin, and this spike in insulin then binds to a receptor. Insulin binds to its receptor, and once that happens, it sends a signal that phosphorylates FOXO. So FOXO, again, being very important for longevity, once it is phosphorylated, it cannot travel to the nucleus of a cell. So in order for FOXO to actually get activated, it lies dormant in our body most of the time. When it gets activated, then it starts doing all its cool things. It has to travel to the nucleus of a cell in order to get expressed and activated. Well, once it's been phosphorylated because of presence of insulin, then it can't get into the nucleus, so it can never get expressed, so we don't get the benefit of it. That's why I typically say, like, try to have periods of time where your insulin levels are lower. So if you are eating carbohydrates, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get the benefits of it. It means you need to have these periodic drops where insulin levels are lower so that you can actually get away with having FOXO do its job and not having it constantly be phosphorylated, okay? So you don't have to cut out the carbs, but you do need to have very clear defined boundaries of when you allow insulin to spike and when you don't. That's why I feel like snacking is the enemy. I think we can get away with decent amount of calories. We just need to have these gaps where we're not having chronically high levels of insulin, or even any high levels of insulin, not just chronically high. Okay, so let's talk about another piece of the equation, which has to do with NAD and NADH, which is a little bit more complicated, but I have a knack for making it fairly simple. Okay, so a lot of people out there, based on some of my other videos that I've done talking about lower carb protocols and longevity and everything like that, they tend to think that keto is the only way for longevity. That's not the case. Keto has some benefits there. It's not the fact that ketones themselves are promoting longevity. I mean, they are in some ways, but it's more about the absence of carbohydrates. See, what happens is inside of our cell, when we're producing energy, we have carbohydrates and we have electrons and all this stuff, right? Well, what happens is we have something called NAD, and NAD binds to an electron, and when it binds to an electron, it turns into NADH, and it travels inside the mitochondria to create energy. Well, if we are taking up all of the NAD and binding it to an electron or turning it into NADH, that means we have a worse, what is called NAD to NADH ratio. Well, what's the caveat here? What's the big deal? Well, NAD doesn't just carry electrons into a cell or into the mitochondria, right? NAD is also used to activate something called SIRT1 or sirtuins, which are huge longevity genes. Dr. David Sinclair has done loads of research on this, as have many others. Sirtuins are a big part of aging, and we need extra NAD to activate them. That's why when you are fasting, when you're not eating, you're leaving more NAD available, which means more NAD is available to go and activate sirtuins because less NAD is being occupied by delivering electrons because of food. Well, it turns out that glucose uses a lot more NAD, so it worsens the NAD-NADH ratio and leaves less NAD available. It's not that eating a high-fat, low-carb diet and having high ketones magically creates more NAD. It's the absence of the glucose that leaves more NAD available. So that means even a small, minuscule reduction in your carbohydrate intake can free up a lot of NAD. So every conscious decision to modulate carbohydrate intake, at least throughout the course of the day, is going to have an effect on your available NAD to go activate sirtuins, which have a longevity attribute. Now again, I could go into a lot of detail as to what FOXO and sirtuins specifically do, but I think that's for a different video. And if you want to see that video, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'm happy to expand on that. It gets into some pretty serious bioenergetics and some pretty serious like telomere discussion and everything like that, which I don't think we need in this video. So what is the takeaway from this? The takeaway from this is try to make a conscious reduction of 20 to 25% of your carbohydrates. I don't necessarily think it is all about calories. Yes, calories absolutely matter, but when it comes to the hallmarks of aging, it looks like glucose and its ability to sort of phosphorylate FOXO and its ability to tie up that NAD is really a bigger driver. So we want to have these drops in between meals. I would recommend clear boundaries of 3 hours between meals at the very least. Fasting obviously plays a role, but if you can't fast, 3 clear hours in between meals where you're drinking nothing but water, tea, or coffee, no insulin spikes, and then clear defined times when you have your carbohydrates. So you allow insulin levels a chance to get lower, allow FOXO to be expressed, and you ultimately allow NAD to go do a different job other than shuttling in electrons to make us have energy from food. I will see you tomorrow.